Hey, it's Matthew Giorgio. I want to explain what brand is in very simple, easy to understand terms. I'm going to do it by showing you a template that I use for my businesses to build and define the brands. And now you can use the same template to build your own brand in a very simple way, and then use that tool to then communicate what brand is to your colleagues and employees and partners and anybody else who's helping you with your success. And the best way for me to show you this is to actually show you a specific business brand that I just built, a brand guide I call it, that I just did for my newest business called Business XP. Okay, so what is brand? So brand is not your logo, a brochure, or a product. A lot of people confuse brand thinking it's a logo or one of these things. It is not one of those. Those are part of your brand, but they are not your brand. It's also important to recognize the brand is not what we say it is. You can't tell people what your brand is. Brand is how other people feel about your business. And you can't tell someone how to feel, right? It's how they feel about your business. And when I say feel, I mean, yes, feel, like a gut feeling. And often a customer can't explain why they feel a certain way towards your brand, but they feel that way. Now, you, even though you can't tell people how to feel, you can influence this feeling with these things that actually make up a brand. It's a brand promise, brand personality, visual identity, tone of voice, and there's other things as well. So let's go quickly through all of these. And again, I'm going to use this template as an example of my Business XP business. So let's start with brand promise. Brand promise is our promise for the kind of experience that people are going to have with us in our business. So for my Business XP business, it's the fastest and most inspiring business training ever invented for future business leaders and entrepreneurs. It is game-based experiential learning. That is the promise we're making to our customers, which will be students, that we're giving them the fastest and most inspiring business training that they've ever experienced. And we're doing that using game-based or experiential learning as opposed to lectures and classrooms and videos. And that's our differentiator, and that's our promise. So promise is what kind of experience are people going to have with you? So when you're going to define your promise, what is that promise? Then you have your brand personality. That's the human personality characteristics that are associated with your brand. Okay, are you fun? Are you creative? Are you cheerful? Are you loud? So let's take a look at Business XP. Now, to help with this, there are some companies over the years that have done research and categorized brand personalities, sometimes called brand archetypes. So I didn't create this wheel. I'm just using it as a way to demonstrate the different types of personalities that you may have. So common brands that you might know, Amazon generally attempts to be friendly, straightforward in their personality. Virgin and the various Virgin brands, they try to be kind of rebellious. They've got a Virgin airline that's supposed to be different than other airlines, and a cell phone business that's supposed to be different than other cell phone business. Now, you may or may not feel that way, but this is the positioning of these various brands. A hero brand would be like a Red Bull, right? It's all very adventurous or brave. So you can look at this wheel. And again, there's other examples, other researchers that might use different terminology. So this is not the exact rule. So where I'd like to position our Business XP brand is actually a little bit in three different places. So the primary area is here under wise, because we are an educational experience. And so we want to be seen as wise and trustworthy, very much like Harvard might, although we're not a college or a university. We're very different than that. And that's why I also put us into the category where Apple sits. We're idealistic, we're very different, we're very creative. Now, some might say we're rebellious as well, because we are rebelling in terms of our product. It's rebelling against the conventional learning methods, but we're not positioning our brand in that particular way. We're trying to be more different in terms of our idealistic and our innovation rather than just being a rebellious attitude. And then we also, in terms of our writing style and so on, which I'll talk about, we'd like to be friendly, that you see here. Now, again, you can do this for your brand. Look at where you would like to be and then start to align your other elements of your brand to be consistent with this. In addition to identifying where you want to be on this wheel or these personality traits, you then want to maybe identify some language that is more descriptive. So for us, we want to be innovative. We want our experience or our personality to come across as professional, yet we're still friendly and approachable. We want to be helpful. We want to be responsive. We want to be transparent in terms of our pricing and how we do what we do. And we want to be focused on customer success. So again, I have different businesses, and I would have different brand guides for each of the businesses. Next comes the identity. So this is where most people think brand is, but again, this is only one element of your brand as you're discovering here. So what is identity? It's the visible elements of our brand, including color, form, and shape. It communicates visually what words cannot communicate. And again, that includes color and logo and type and imagery, interface design, and more, all the visual elements of your brand. So our name is Business XP, and the XP means experience, and it's derived from the commonly known gaming XP, which means experience points. So we're leveraging that commonly known terminology of XP and putting that into the name of our business, Business XP. We always use a lowercase b, even at the start of a sentence. The reason we do it is because it visually aligns with our logo, and which you can see in the upper right corner there, and provides a greater emphasis on the XP, because again, we want the XP to kind of stand out. And there's no space between business and XP because we've already registered trademarks, Business XP without the space, and we feel it looks more like a brand when it doesn't have the space because of the fact that business is a word of its own, very common word obviously, and XP is somewhat common to certain people. It might look like it's just two separate words, and we want it to be more like a brand, so we don't use the space. And again, we always use the lowercase b. That's a decision. No, that's totally a subjective decision that you can make in your own business. You'll see some brands that have a lowercase b in their logo, but they'll still use uppercase when they're writing about the business. In terms of sharing your brand guide with others, you want to give people some direction on what's appropriate and what isn't in terms of keeping your brand consistent. So you'll notice with us, we say, yes, this is the way you have to spell Business XP, right? Our website is business-xp.com, and we can write it. It's acceptable to us to write it in both of the ways that you see here. But all these examples here on the right are not acceptable. So that's some guidance. Let's move on. So we have our primary gold color, our secondary blue color. We define the RGB and hex values. So again, if we're sharing this with other people, this is important information so that your colors are always consistent. Typography, or the fonts, we use Ubuntu for our main logo and our headlines, and then for body, we'll use a sans serif font. Sans serif means it doesn't have any little curlies or squiggles. It's more of a straight font. Font is a big part of brand as well. It can convey certain feelings and moods and emotions about your brand. So you may find that your brand is better with a serif font. We use USA spelling in our business because our customers around the world, and we prefer to use US spelling rather than British spelling. Imagery, we are still defining that, but we try to use more authenticity in this particular brand rather than professionally polished imagery. And the reason we do that is we just find it resonates better in our modern world. In terms of our logo, so we have various treatments of our logos. You'd want to have a logo that's good for light colored backgrounds and one for dark colored backgrounds. In our case, we have two variations of our logo. That's not always the case. You may just have one variation of your logo. Two, we also have a tagline, a bit of a descriptive tagline under our logo. So some cases, we say here it's acceptable to use our logo without a tagline, or with the experiential learning tagline. And then there's another one you can't see under here, but it says game-based learning. So we're going to be experimenting with the words experiential learning and game-based learning to see what resonates best with our customers. But it's very important that you have a logo in two colors, one for light colored backgrounds and one for dark colored backgrounds. Then you have your social media imagery. So there's different profiles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. They all use kind of different size headers and profile imagery. So this is actually a fair bit of work to kind of create all these variations, but you want to have some consistency amongst all of them in terms of your colors and so on. You also want to make sure that people who don't normally work with graphics understand some important guidelines with graphics. So you always want to maintain your aspect ratio. So you can see here the logo is in different sizes, but it always looks the same. It looks good in all the sizes. Whereas here the logo is squished, and the same as here. This is squished vertically, this is squished horizontally. That's not acceptable. You never want that. And I'm sure you see this all the time, right? I see it all the time with logos. That's just somebody not following proper logo guidelines, not understanding logo guidelines. Resolution is another issue. Sometimes you'll see blurry images. That's because they're lower resolution in how they're created and saved. And if you're working with a graphic designer or anything, they'll be able to identify and provide you with the proper resolutions for everything. So it's just important to recognize that you don't want blurry imagery. Also, in terms of background, so there's this concept of transparent background, so that when you put a logo on a background, you don't get this kind of white cropped look that you see here, or gold cropped look that you see here. Everything is nice and clean, like you see above, right? So this is using what's called a transparent background. So if you have a PNG image, if it's done properly, it can provide the transparent background. Also, it's important what I'm showing here is that you use the proper color logo. So you'll see here, our gold logo on a white or light background is not appropriate because it gets lost on that background, particularly when it's small, right? So we'll want to use the blue version of that logo, which is correct here. And then on the dark brown background, we'll use the gold version. Text. So text is part of your visual identity as well. For example, we'd like to use larger font sizes for everything. Well, as most might use 14 and 16 point font, we like to use 16, 18 to 20 point font, and even larger in some cases. We want it to be easy to read. We also use spaces between paragraphs. We don't indent the start of a paragraph. So we're giving kind of guidelines here of how we want our text to visually appear, because it's very important for us to make sure that we always make things really easy to read, and we feel that following these guidelines does that for us. Tone of voice. So what is tone of voice? Well, tone of voice, it's not what we say, but it's how we say it. It's actually the written word. So even though it says voice, you think, oh, it's how I speak out loud. No, it's actually how you write. And it's the language we use to construct sentences, and the order and sound of our words, and ultimately the personality that comes across in our writing. So that's tone of voice. So what I have here is just a simple list of keywords that we try to adhere to whenever we write. So we always write to be informative. We want to be wise and valuable and useful in what we provide with our Business XP brand. We want to be accurate because we're in the education business. We need to be accurate in the information we're conveying to people. We want to be clear. We want to make it easy to understand. Again, we're in the education business. We have to make things easy to understand. And we're in the business of trying to make things faster to understand. So we don't want you to spend hours and hours learning something that we can teach you much faster. That's why we use games and simulations and experiential learning, because we can do it really fast. But we also try to adhere to this concept even with our text. So we try to be brief in our explanations, brief and clear in everything that we do. Just like I'm trying to do here in this short video of explaining the super complexities of brand in a very quick and simple way. Secondarily, we want to be friendly in our writing. So even though we're professional, we don't want to feel kind of stodgy and stiff. We want to feel friendly and approachable, and occasionally lighthearted. So if you were to sign up for our Business XP free email training, you would get an email every couple of days with some informative content on business and learning about business and so on. And we try to be a little bit lighthearted in that email so that you look forward to getting it every few days. Resources. So what I'm doing with this slide is communicating to our team to use our existing resources that we've spent a lot of time painstakingly trying to find the right language for, and copy and paste text from those resources so we can always remain on brand. So if you hear the word on brand, it means you're doing things to be consistent with your brand guidelines. If you hear the word off brand, that's a way of saying, hey, that's not consistent with our guidelines. That's off brand. So what I tell people in our teams to remain on brand is copy and paste our text that we've painstakingly spent time creating, rather than try to rewrite stuff on your own. Not only is it better in terms of being on brand, but it's faster too. You're saving time because you're repurposing the same content. And then we reference resources like our website, our curriculum, and so on where to get some of this information. Some examples of terminology. So whenever we refer to our team, we use the word we don't say I, or try not to say I or they. We use the word team when referring to our people rather than saying our company or our employees. We like and prefer to say our team. We think that's better and on brand. We use the word students or learners or participants or customers where appropriate. So different contexts, we would use different language, but we kind of identify the language that we use. And we could take this further. We could have another slide that actually defines exactly when should we use students, when should we use learners. So what I'm showing you here is a simple tool with a few slides that's a very fast and easy way to communicate what you want, but then you can actually go deeper and start building this out even further. So that's our Business XP brand. Let me jump right to the beginning, give you a quick summary here. Brand is how other people feel about our business, but we can influence that feeling with our brand promise, our brand personality, our visual identity, and our tone of voice. I hope you'll find this helpful. I'm Matthew Giorgio. Thanks for listening.